Hey, what's up? Last Layer King here. At the Southern Championship, I competed in fewest moves, and I placed second with an average of 32.33 moves. So I want to go over my solutions because they were rather interesting. I really didn't do any practice for fewest moves leading up to the competition, and my only other experience with fewest moves was back in 2019 where I got a DNF result. So I decided to just take the strategy of trying to get a mean, not really trying to do anything advanced, and I was just going to spam CFOP solves until I found something lucky. As some of you might know, I am not color neutral when solving with CFOP, so it seems like I would only be limited to solving on white. However, if I wanted to solve different crosses, I could just do that by scrambling the cube in a different orientation. So on the first scramble, I was trying out a bunch of different orientations to see if I could find any good crosses and any good continuations on them. And I eventually found that if I scrambled with white on the left, I would get something like this. So here my four cross pieces are here, 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 and here. So I start with the green, just inserting it down like this. Seeing that after I misalign the D face to place red in, it'll push blue out of the way and blue will be ready to go in as well. So I solve red and blue. And then I do a D so I can solve orange with an F move, and at this point I see I have this pair right here. So if I do a U, then inserting the orange piece will give me a split pair, which I can solve in 3 moves. Also, I noticed that I had this edge solve, which might be useful later because I could potentially do keyhole. However, this corner is not really well placed for that. So in my solution, I just realign the bottom and then insert this pair, which conveniently gives me this pair. So now I can just insert this one as well. So after just like 13 or 14 moves, I have completed cross plus 2, and I actually have 2 of the other F2L edges solved. I had tried some different F2L solutions for these cases, but I didn't find anything super inspiring or anything that gave me like a really easy last layer, so I took a bit of a different approach. So as you can see here, I have almost all the edges solved. In fact, I just have a 3 cycle on edges. So I figured I could try to solve the edges and maybe get a case on corners that would be good. So with these 2 opposite colors here, the quickest sort of algorithm for a case that looks like this would be this case here, which you can solve like this, or you can do this algorithm where it's the inverse of Sexy Move Sledgehammer. So in my solution, I end up doing that algorithm, except I do it lefty. So I do it like this, and now we get all the edges solved. So this looks like a sort of ugly case because there's no other solved corners, but I decided to look at it anyway and try to proceed, and I have 2 3 cycles. So this piece goes to here, which goes to here, and then we have this piece which goes to here, which goes to here. So I thought maybe I could do some insertions, but I didn't really want to try to spend the time to figure out insertions. So I just tried to see if I could find anything good just directly solving it. So this cycle here is actually an 8 mover. So this piece goes to here, so I can insert it with L prime D2 L, and then I'll do a U move interchange. And now it's all that cycle. But then I'm left with this cycle here, which is a really bad cycle. However, I started tracking the pieces of the second cycle while doing moves of the first cycle, and I found that after inserting this corner, the insertion moves the corner from the other cycle over to here. And now this piece goes to here, which goes to here. And this cycle is actually an 8 mover, and it conveniently cancels with the first cycle, because I'm basically just combining L moves. So I can now insert this piece to here to start the second cycle, and then interchange, and then undo the insertion. And now I can proceed back into the first cycle, which means I now need to undo my insertion onto this location here, but my original insertion location was here, so I have to do a U2. So I undo the insertion, and now the cube is solved. So I was able to cancel 1 move between the 2 corner commutators. So now going back to this position here from before I did the OLL, it actually works out that if I just do the OLL, the alg finishes with an L, but my first move of the commutator of the first 3 cycle was an L prime, so I can actually just not do the L and cancel into my 2 corner comms. So I'm actually saving a couple of extra moves here, and it turns out I'm only adding 13 moves by solving this 6C case, which is very convenient. So that got me a 34 on the first solve. So I didn't really know what to expect going into the solve, so I was pretty happy with the 34, especially considering that was second place for the first attempt. And the first place for the first attempt was only 33 moves, so I was only one move off. So here is the second scramble. So I did the second scramble with white on top and green in the front, just your standard orientation. So I ended up doing white cross here. So in order to solve the cross here, I would just set up orange to be opposite red, so I can do it like this. And then I will realign these two pieces, and then solve blue. And then I'm going to go over a couple different ways of continuing from here, because this was a really fun solve and there was a lot of good F2L cases. So if I just solve green like this, we have this pair here which can be solved in 5 moves, taking advantage of this empty slot. And then this gives us a free pair here, and if you solve it, you end up with this. But then you start to realize, if you don't solve it, you're sort of actually canceling into solving this pair here. So if I just solve this pair without really even paying attention to this pair, these end up pairing up. And then I can solve this into the back, and then solve this one into here. And then unfortunately, if I solve this one normally, I kind of get a bad ZBLL case. So this solution didn't really work out. So back to the start after solving these two edges, D2. So now after inserting this piece here, I can do any AUF I want before inserting this edge. So what I did is I moved this corner over to here because I knew it sets up to a 6-move first pair. So I did it like this. And then I can pair these up like this over here. And then after I insert, I get a free pair here, which is really nice. So I started messing around with this free pair, and this would give me a 5-move pair. And this gives me a free pair. And then we get this last layer, which is a 7-mover into a U-perm. So not really ideal, it's a decent last layer, and I think it would give me a 37-move solution, but I wasn't super happy with it. I really wanted something better. I tried a bunch more solutions doing this U2 before inserting this edge in the cross, and it was pretty crazy how it seemed like no matter what F2L insert I did, if I was doing alternate inserts, I kept getting good continuations, but I kept also getting not so good last layers. But this seemed like I could solve with incredibly good F2L no matter what you did. But after a good amount of trying, I eventually found the F2L solution that gave me a good last layer. So it's with the same cross plus 1. So I do the U2 to set up this pair. So now we get to this pair. So instead of solving this with the U2, I found that I can do this 5-move VLS insert. So like this VLS case is for this case here. So you can solve the pair like this and get an OLL skip. And conveniently, it also gives me this pair here. So I can try a couple inserts with this pair. I can do either RU2 R prime or insert it like this. But if I insert with RU2 R prime, it makes this pair. And then if I insert this pair like this, I finally get a good last layer. This is just a PLL skip case. And not only do I get the good last layer, I get to cancel it because the alg starts by taking out this pair, so the pair is already out. So I can just finish the solve by doing RU and then go into the last layer alg like this. And that gave me a 33-move solution, and that was my result for the second attempt. So here we have the third scramble. I also did this one with white on top, so it gave me a pretty good solution on white. So I have these two pieces which can go in relative to each other like this. They are correctly aligned with red to the left of green. And there's a couple ways of solving these two pieces. So one of those ways is to align this and then solve orange and then solve blue. And this gives me a really good case because I've got this pair which I can solve without affecting this pair. So this gives me a very good cross plus 2 in just about 13 or 14 moves. Another cross solution I found was after solving these two pieces, I could just do a D2 and then solve blue. and then just align everything and then solve orange, which also gives me the same case where I have these two pieces split up ready to go in, and then I have this pair too. So if I solve this case, the rest of the cube is a little bit different because I did the cross differently. But when I solve this orange-blue pair, it also makes this pair. And now I've got two pairs diagonal from each other going into adjacent slots. So this is really, really convenient because this is a 5-move multi-slot. I can just do a sledgehammer and then just do a U prime here. And now I've got this pair, which isn't super great, so there's a few different ways of doing it. So what I tried was just doing the normal insertion where you just move this edge back to here. And then I tried a few different inserts for just finishing the F2L, but none of them really gave me a good last layer. So the next thing I tried was I went back to this F2L pair because I know some F2 Gen F prime F2L trick. I think I learned from Jaden McNeil. But if you can do something like this where you put the pieces here, do F, and then just do this 2 gen stuff, and then you can finish with F prime. So we get this one look last layer, which I happen to know, but it's also not the greatest case. So what I decided to do is go back to this multi-slot case here and look if there was some way that I could solve it slightly differently to give me a different fourth pair. And I found that after doing R prime F, this entire right face is pretty free. So I can basically do an extra turn with it, and potentially that could affect the fourth pair and last layer. So I found that if I did this with an R2, and then did U prime, R prime, F prime, we get a free pair. And now with this free pair, I've got all the inserts I can try to do. There's this, which gives me a case that I don't know how to solve, but I could also insert it with a sledgehammer, which gives me a ZBLL. And this is actually a pretty good ZBLL. It's a 12-mover. So with that ZBLL solution, I would get a 34-move result, and I was really happy with that because that would mean I would have a 33.67 mean, which, considering that I'm just doing CFOP and nothing advanced, that seemed really good for me. But I did have about 30 to 40 minutes to continue messing with the cube, and I started looking back to see if I could do anything differently, potentially earlier on, or maybe even find something better in a line that I already looked at. So going back to the start, I tried doing the same cross solution, and then I got to this multi-slot, and I decided to revisit just what happens if I solve it normally. So you get this sort of ugly looking case again, but I did know another way of solving it. So if I move them back here, if you do M prime, it's sort of like this case where you do like R, U2, and then R, R2 to pair them up. And the M really just combines with the R move. So the insert goes like this. And look at this last layer. Just left the F sexy F prime. So that gave me a 30-move solution, and I finished with a 32.33 mean. So I was really happy with this result. I had actually never done a successful fewest moves attempt before, so technically I beat my PB single 3 times with each individual solve, and I got a PB mean. I did find it very peculiar, especially on the second and third solves, how good the F2L cases were. So I kind of want to get some feedback from y'all. For those of you who use CFOP, do you have trouble finding good F2L solutions? Or do you eventually find something good just by experimenting with the cube enough? Because in these solves, it just felt like the F2L solutions came so naturally and easy, and it was just a matter of finding a good last layer. So let me know what you think about my solutions. Do you think they were easy? Do you think they were just lucky? Is it normal to get these types of F2L solutions? Let me know in the comments, and I will catch you in the next video.